There are now 7 billion people living on our planet. Our numbers are rising every day. Humanity is on the brink of overload. Already, there are a few places on Earth that give us a glimpse of the future. Test cases for whether we'll be able to cope. These are the world's busiest. Tokyo, Japan, one of the biggest, most crowded cities on Earth, and still growing. At its heart, a train station like no other. This is Shinjuku. In the next 24 hours, more than 3 million people will pass through here. Double the population of Barcelona.
Rush hour is always a nightmare.
Every day, the team at Shinjuku must overcome immense hurdles.
We have to push people into the carriages or they just get left behind.
The system is on the brink of collapse.
The train arrives every 3 seconds. There are 5 rush hours, 35 platforms, and constant, relentless pressure. Worse, they face earthquakes, typhoons, even terrorist attack. This is 24 hours in the life of Shinjuku, the world's busiest train station. (1:38 a.m.) Tokyo's Shinjuku Station. The doors are locked. Miles of corridors, escalators and platforms are all empty. There's not a passenger in sight. In a few hours' time, this will be the busiest train station on Earth. But right now, Eiji Kondo is in charge. Even though he works unseen in the night, Eiji shares the typical Japanese philosophy of everyone at Shinjuku. Only perfection will do.
I've worked here for 9 years. I'm very proud to clean the station. My job gives me a huge sense of fulfillment.
Tokyo doesn't really sleep, it just sort of pauses for repairs. Once the last train is gone, then the station cleaning crews move in. It doesn't stop, nothing stops.
Eiji has 17 in his team. They're just one unit in an army of cleaners. The station is as big as 60 football pitches. They have just 3 hours a night to make it sparkle.
We clear up 9 tons of rubbish from the station every day.
I always think of it as just sort of rebooting or restarting. It's like when you turn off your computer and you turn it back on. By morning, there are no signs of all that chaos that has just been perfectly swept away.
From the moment Shinjuku awakes, everything and everyone has to run like clockwork. Station bosses don't miss a trick. Hundreds of their staff even sleep at the station, in pods behind the scenes. It's been another night asleep on the job for customer service manager Tomoki Iwahori. Now, every part of his day will run to the railway's timetable.
When I was younger and new to the job, I struggled to get up on time. But I've got used to the shifts over the years. I always wake up on time now.
Not that Tomoki has any choice. Shinjuku's bosses have installed a specialist alarm clock in every room. It inflates the bed so that no one can be late for their shift.
Sometimes the inflating alarm clock makes me feel sick, so it's always better to wake up naturally.
(4 a.m.) Shinjuku's doors open. For Tomoki, it's the last few seconds of peace. From the moment he steps out into the station, his feet won't touch the floor.
Thank you for choosing J1 East Shinjuku Station.
Shinjuku is already being overrun by the early morning rush as millions make their way to work. Tomoki has been doing this for 10 years now. As he makes his way to his post on the main concourse, the world's busiest crowds are his normal working day, and he doesn't have to face them on his own.
The customer service team is a close-knit group. We're like a family, brothers and sisters.
Whilst Tomoki helps his first passenger, on platform 12, his teammate Hideki Matsuda is feeling the heat. It's been 14 years on the job, but he's still shocked by the relentless crowds.
I step out onto the platform and straight away 30 people stop me. It's crazy, but I've got to stay focused. It's my job to help them.
That's just one platform. Shinjuku has 35, stacked layer upon layer, all straining under the rush hour stampede. Today, 25,000 trains will roll through. End to end, they'd stretch from London to New York. A new train every 3 seconds. The pressure on Shinjuku Station is intense. On every platform, a team just like Tomoki's only has 2 precious minutes before another train arrives. All across the station, the staff are performing their synchronized drills, human cogs in the Shinjuku machine. At this station, 4 guards check the line instead of 1, each double-checking the others to ensure the tracks are clear. It's attention to detail as an extreme sport, but it has to be. Every job is geared to getting every train in and out of the platform safely and on time. At the world's busiest station, more than anywhere else, every second counts.
A delay of even 5 seconds can easily spread to the entire system and become a delay of 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds within a matter of moments. And each delay that goes over 2 minutes means that an entire train has to be canceled.
Tomoki knows if trains are cancelled, dangerous numbers of passengers will build up on platforms already bursting at the seams.
At Shinjuku, the number of passengers we have is on a much bigger scale than other stations. If a train's even a minute late, the platform's overrun with more and more people.
So they have to get it right. Every 2 minutes a train arrives at every platform. 4,000 people want to get off, 4,000 more want to get on. The guards only have 30 seconds to load each train. In Tokyo, being late for work is unthinkable. So no one's going to wait for the next train. But if it looks like there's no more room, think again.
The guards have to push you into the carriage, otherwise you don't get on. But it's a horrible experience.
Riding Japanese trains is something I would never really get used to. Rush hour is always a nightmare. And it's always the pushing and shoving.
Sayuri Nagama is one of the millions who commutes through Shinjuku every day on her way to work. But as a woman, she faces an additional danger in the overcrowded trains. Tokyo's rail system is notorious for men who take advantage of the crush to grope and photograph women and girls. It's got so bad that at Shinjuku, they have to provide women-only carriages.
You have to be careful. Strange people will try to touch you. Women-only carriages is a very good thing. You just don't want the strange men right next to you, their body pushed against me. So I feel comfortable in women's carriages.
While the women-only carriages give protection from one threat, there's no escaping the Tokyo squeeze. The train's designed for 2,000 people. The guards must squash in 4,000. It's a brute force approach, but they close the doors just in time.
It's an experience like no other. Once you get in and the doors close, you can sense everybody breathing out to create just enough more space for them to be able to close the doors. People faint. People's arms have been crushed and broken. You just wait for the next station. The doors open and just the pressure unleashes and people sort of spill out onto the platform. So it's really like nowhere else.
At 8:30 a.m. The morning rush hits its peak at the world's busiest station. Shinjuku is at the heart of a perfect storm of busyness. Tokyo is the most crowded city on Earth, with 36 million people, 5 times as many as London. So crowded, only trains can keep them moving. And most of them come to Shinjuku, for the business district on one side, or for the party zone on the other. Caught in the middle, Shinjuku must run on time if the city is to keep working. The commuter crush finally starts to slow. The world's busiest station doesn't have just one rush hour every morning, it has 2. And the second, even bigger wave is about to strike. A.m. Shinjuku Station, Tokyo. The early morning commuter crush is over, but the 700-strong team have no time to relax. At the world's busiest train station, another rush hour is on its way. To cope with the pressure, station bosses run a unique regime. Behind closed doors, in rooms around the station, every single member of staff takes part in a drill that builds discipline and dedication. Station head Shinya Yoshizawa oversees the recital of railway philosophy. Morale raised by the company mottos, the hundreds of workers now head back out to the front line. Shinjuku Station is about to be hit by rush hour number 2. The tourists are coming. At the station's help desk, Miki Sukara and her team take a last moment to prepare. If they let queues build up, it'll block the concourse. Miki has to have all the answers at her fingertips.
Shinjuku Station is the world's busiest. Then I am busiest woman working for busiest place.
During the first morning rush, it was all experienced commuters flowing through Shinjuku on autopilot. But now, the thousands of tourists can get easily lost in the maze of platforms and concourses. Miki and Tomoki must work together to get them where they're going. They know if passengers miss trains, the crowds will back up and people will be put in danger.
It's hard to count. There are times when I help 10 people per minute.
In the next 2 hours, Tomoki and his team will answer more than 7,000 questions. They're all that stands between Shinjuku and gridlock. But for every passenger helped, there are plenty more to come. (9:11 a.m.) And while the frontline staff firefight minute by minute, the team in the control room know that at the world's busiest station, they have to solve problems before they take hold. Manager Masamitsu Kobayashi constantly monitors scores of cameras and CCTV screens for trouble.
My top priority is keeping passengers flowing smoothly through the station.
He watches over every platform, every train, the hundreds of ticket barriers, the thousands of people.
We're always watching how the crowds are moving. We're ready to react fast.
At Shinjuku, extreme overcrowding is an everyday reality for the team. When crowd density hits tipping point, 7 people per square meter, they start to flow like a liquid. People can actually be lifted off the ground, and if someone falls, it could be disastrous. The team is always ready to jump in. On platform 16, another packed train pulls in. Passengers rush to board, whilst thousands of others pour from the carriages. As the 2 directions of traffic converge, it takes just seconds for the stairwell to become a throng of bodies. In the control room, Matsumitsu relies on constant updates from Tamaki and the team on the ground.
People can easily trip over each other. I've seen them fall onto the track.
The control room has just moments to react. Surprisingly, the solution is as low-tech as they come. A length of green rope. They extend the rope down the stairs, a very fast way of separating two flows of traffic.
When there are too many people, it gets dangerous. The rope lets us control the crowd and stop anyone getting hurt.
In less than a minute, the crowd is redirected. Stampede averted. (9:15 a.m.) The station team may have their side of operations running perfectly, but it's no use if the trains don't arrive on time. The job of train driver is highly respected. It takes years of training to work their way up the ranks and finally climb into the cab. Of everyone at the world's busiest station, it's drivers like Takahara Toyoda who feel the pressure most.
I'm always stressed coming into the platform at Shinjuku. It's so crowded. You have to be really careful.
But there are so many people to be moved on Tokyo's trains. The schedule is king.
In the railway world, we say every minute and second is precious.
One train's late, and that makes the next one late, and the next, until everything is delayed.
Anywhere else in the world, a train running a minute behind schedule might be considered on time. But in Japan, wasting even 60 seconds is almost seen as a crime. So the drivers have to keep a very close eye on their clocks.
When I'm driving, I'm thinking of the time. Time belongs to everyone. So being late is stealing time from everyone.
But with drivers under extreme pressure, carriages packed like sardines, and hundreds of tons of speeding steel, the Shinjuku team know those vital seconds can come at a heavy price. 9:20 a.m. on the 25th of April 2005. A train driver was on the rush hour run. He had just 28 seconds of leeway built into his whole journey and was running late. He'd been in trouble before, heavily fined and humiliated for failing to keep to time. So he put his foot down to catch up with the clock. Travelling at 62 miles an hour, way above the speed limit, his train jumped the tracks and smashed violently into an apartment block. (107) died, including the driver. A further 562 passengers were injured.
The accident did cause a lot of reflection on punctuality in Japan. The accident really became indicative of a way of life. There was tremendous criticism about the lack of leeway and the way that this forced train operators to the train drivers to really to live at this heightened level of anxiety that they couldn't be late.
The desperate attempt to stay on time had led to one of Japan's worst rail disasters. There were calls to relax the timetable, but with the immense numbers at Shinjuku, that would mean total system failure. The schedule had to stay. The trains were all fitted with automatic brakes, so they couldn't go over the speed limit.
Please change here for the Saito line, the Shonan Shinjuku line, and the Hibiya subway line.
And drivers like Takahara Toyoda just had to work even harder to keep on time. 11:03 a.m., Tamaki heads to the ticket machines. Shinjuku has almost 300 of them. With so many tourists, the machines are a pressure point at peak times. For the uninitiated, finding the right fare is a nightmare. They sell tickets to destinations all over Japan, with more than 20 types to choose from. Commuter Pass, Season Pass, Super Express, Limited Express, Reserved Seat, First Class, Sleeper. People don't just need tickets for overground journeys. It isn't just surface travelers that make Shinjuku the world's busiest station. Beneath Tomaki's feet lies a warren of metro lines. Shinjuku is the hub of the biggest and busiest metro system in the world. A web of 274 stations and 13 lines carry 8 million passengers every day. That's the entire population of New York City. The metro is Tokyo's central nervous system, the perfect target for terrorist attack. The 20th of March, 1995. Millions of passengers were on their way to work. Masako Ugami was one of them.
People on the train were feeling sick, but no one knew why. I was struggling to breathe and couldn't think straight.
It was the peak of the morning rush hour. Unknown to the millions of crammed commuters, religious extremists had targeted 5 specific trains, all headed beneath Tokyo's government and finance districts. They planted bags of a nerve agent called sarin. Sarin is far more deadly than cyanide. A drop the size of a single pinhead will kill a human. The terrorists had dropped 11 litres, punctured the bags and fled. The sarin was now evaporating into an invisible, lethal gas.
I had to get off the train. I just couldn't stay there another moment. Someone asked one of the staff what the smell was, and they said it was a cleaning product, but it didn't smell like that at all.
As more and more passengers struggled to breathe, the trains just kept running. One of them pulled into Shinjuku. Poisoned passengers got off. Fresh passengers got on. No one yet knew what was happening.
Passengers were collapsing on the floor and convulsing in a fit. I felt so sick I thought the world was going to end.
Nearly 6,000 people were injured. Almost 1,000 were temporarily blinded. 12 died. For those who escaped with their lives, traveling the metro will never be the same. Last time, the emergency services, hospitals and metro staff were unprepared for an attack. A system this complex can never be made 100% safe. But today, the Shinjuku team know letting their guard down isn't an option. Terrorists could strike again. Midday, and for Tomaki, at last a break in his watch over the station. Trouble is, at the world's busiest station, tens of thousands of hungry commuters all want to eat at once. Inside the station, there are only 12 restaurants to serve millions of calories to fuel commuters on the fly. Tamaki heads back out on duty. (1 p.m. If Tomaki wasn't busy enough helping passengers with endless requests, he must also keep his eyes peeled for a specific type of commuter who, without warning, can bring the station to a grinding halt.
We keep an eye out for passengers who are dawdling or acting suspiciously. We approach them. Sometimes they have come here to kill themselves. Several times I have had to stop them.
Japan has one of the highest suicide rates in the developed world. Every year, around 30,000 people kill themselves. One every 15 minutes. Though it happens here every day, the word suicide is still taboo. The delays are blamed on human incident.
I think human incidents take place 5 times a year at Shinjuku Station. Once it happened in front of my eyes.
The biggest problem right now is people jumping in front of trains. It causes a system shutdown. If you go to Tokyo, almost every day on some line somewhere in the city, somebody has jumped and caused the line to shut down. And when that happens, it causes systemic collapse.
When someone does jump, Shinjuku's dedicated response team must take immediate action.
I get very tense when there's a human incident in the station. All of us in the office go onto high alert. The first thing we do is stop the trains. This is important to prevent any further accidents.
We ensure the casualty is taken to the ambulance discreetly. We then check all the platforms and carriages are ready for services to resume again as soon as we can.
The team aims to clear the line in 20 minutes, but even then, delays build up.
When there is a human incident on the tracks, it takes about an hour before the trains are running again. It takes about 3 or 4 hours for things to return to normal.
There have even been threats to fine families up to £800,000 for the hold-ups suicides cause. But although these everyday problems cause delays, the team at the world's busiest station can just about cope. What they really fear is total shutdown, when uncontrollable forces of nature strike, typhoon and earthquake. 5 p.m. Shinjuku, the world's busiest train station. A transport hub so huge it handles 15 times more passengers than the UK's busiest station, London Waterloo. Now entering its 3rd rush hour of the day. On one side, the office workers are clocking off, and on the other, Shinjuku's nightlife is just getting started. Business people, shoppers and tourists are all flooding through the station at the same time. The ticket barriers are a pressure point at peak times. They control the passenger flow onto platforms. It's Miho Hiraki's job to keep them blockage-free.
My friends always say to me it must be hard to work here because it's so crowded. Every day I'm reminded how busy it is, but you get used to it.
Miho gets inundated with questions about trains and platforms. But she's also expected to be an impromptu guide to Shinjuku's best bars.
1 million people pass through just these gates every day, so it takes all of my time to help them. I have to know the station inside out to give directions, but also give advice on the Shinjuku area. So there's a lot to remember. It's tough.
On platform 3, as the crowds build, Miho's colleague, Hideki Matsuda, is working flat out. Rush hour after rush hour start to blur together.
The entire day feels busy to me. And because I work irregular shifts, I've lost all idea of what a weekend is.
As the evening rush develops, passenger numbers are rising by the minute. In the station's nerve center, the team are on high alert. With Tokyo depending on its trains, Masamitsu Kobayashi knows even the smallest of problems will have big repercussions.
If things are not in order in the office, we lose control of the station. If the office gets its instructions wrong, the station falls apart.
If the evening rush wasn't hard enough, the team received bad news. A typhoon is sweeping in from the Pacific and is headed for Shinjuku. 6:16 p.m. The typhoon arrives. Rain lashes the station. Over the next few hours, hundreds of thousands of commuters are due to pass through Shinjuku. The storm couldn't have come at a worse time. Station head Shinya Yoshizawa calls an emergency meeting.
When something out of the ordinary happens, it puts us on high alert. Our nerves are on edge. We have to make sure the passengers are safe, so it's like getting an adrenaline hit.
Japan is located within the most active typhoon zone in the Pacific. Every year, Tokyo is slammed by these superstorms. They can wipe out the power grid and send airports and railways into shutdown.
The typhoons are a problem. Any kind of operation under high winds caused the electric cables to rip out, or lightning would strike a cable and cause the system to go under.
The typhoon is intensifying. With the wind heading towards hurricane force, Yoshizawa must make a major decision. He has no option but to suspend trains. It's not a decision taken lightly. At the world's busiest station, suspending trains causes serious overcrowding. Managing the frustrated travelers falls on the shoulders of the customer service team.
The most stressful times when the train is delayed and held at the platform. Passengers are stressed too. We all feel it.
As the crowds and the pressure build, the team look for any solution. But the numbers at Shinjuku are so huge, it's a daunting task. "9 p.m. It's been 3 hours of shutdown, but at last the winds are dying away. The station head restarts the trains, and the Shinjuku team begin clearing the backlog. For the millions who depend on Shinjuku, the evening's been a stark reminder of how fast the world's most punctual trains can stop when nature strikes. But the Shinjuku team know all too well, typhoons aren't the worst nature can throw at them. They can face a force so catastrophic, their whole station slams to a halt in an instant. On the 11th of March 2011, Japan's northeast coast was struck by a 9.0 magnitude earthquake, one of the strongest ever recorded. Traveling at 14,000 kilometers an hour, it hit Shinjuku 90 seconds later. Expat John Waite had lived in Tokyo for 14 years. He'd felt small tremors before, but this time he knew it was different.
I planned to go back by train to my home. I was just leaving the hamburger restaurant, going down the staircase, and all of a sudden I thought, like, oh my God, this is the earthquake.
Japan's hit by at least 1,500 earthquakes a year, but was overdue its once-a-century mega-quake.
So I thought, oh, that's the big one. I was running out to the street. Everybody was piling into the streets and things were shaking.
Takeshi Sakino feared for his life.
I was having lunch at Shinjuku when the building started shaking and swaying. I was scared it was going to collapse.
In the peak of rush hour, the station came to an immediate standstill. The quake triggered the railway's safety system, a switch that temporarily shuts off the power supply when an earthquake strikes.
An earthquake can hit at any time without any anticipation. When it hits, can shut the system down within seconds.
Experienced Tokyo commuters expected the trains to return to normal. So while one set of people were being evacuated from Shinjuku, thousands of others were converging on the station to try to get out of the city. Result? Chaos.
I headed for Shinjuku station, but the trains had stopped. The metro wasn't working either. There were so many people at the station, it was overflowing.
It came out that no train would run at all. And you have all these long lines all around Shinjuku station. It was for kilometers and kilometers. It was just going on all around.
For millions, Shinjuku was something they took for granted, day in, day out. But now, with no power, With buildings, trains and tracks potentially damaged, no one was going anywhere.
The 200 staff were massively outnumbered by the crowds. They didn't really know what was going on either, or what they should do. They had to cope the best they could.
People, still hoping to get home, struggled to comprehend the enormity of the disaster.
After the earthquake, the station was overrun with people. They were asking when the trains would start again.
The chaos made a normal day at the world's busiest station look easy. Frontline staff stayed at their posts.
When we got new information, we relayed it to the passengers as soon as we could. It was the only thing we could do to help.
Everyone was stuck. I've never experienced something like that.
The quake could have caused damage throughout the system. Until every inch of station and track were checked, no train could be allowed to run.
Most people live in the suburbs. So if you are without a train, basically you are lost. It was like straight out of a movie, like a panic or disaster film. Everything was just flooded with traffic. And people then started walking.
I had no choice but to walk. I saw people in suits and trainers who walked 10 to 12 miles to get home.
For everyone who walked home that night, it showed Tokyo couldn't work without the world's busiest station. But some people still couldn't grasp that the railway wasn't going to restart soon.
Many people were waiting in front of the station for it to open again.
It took me 5 or 6 hours. I have been never walking home. I mean, it's crazy.
Engineers spent all night checking every inch of the railway for damage. They found Shinjuku had had a lucky escape. The main structure of the station was intact. Tokyo had just about struggled through the day of the quake without Shinjuku. But the following morning revealed a nightmare vision of the city without its crucial station. Tokyo's commuters were determined to make it to work. Station or no station. They took to the roads, causing gridlock. The few trains that could run were more packed than ever. The team at Shinjuku knew their city was counting on them, but they had weeks of work ahead.
We got the trains running normally again a month faster than we'd expected, given the damage the earthquake caused. That was quicker than anyone thought possible.
They brought Shinjuku back from disaster. But there's no way to predict when the next big quake will hit Japan. And the world's busiest station might not be so lucky next time. 11:32 p.m. The station's been open for more than 19 hours, and more than 3 million people have come through in 4 rush hours. But Tamaki dreads the last rush hour of the day more than all the others put together. Thousands of drunken revelers are headed his way, and somehow he must squeeze them all into the very last train. It's the end of the working week in the world's most crowded metropolis, and Tokyo's in party mood. On a normal Friday night, the bars around Shinjuku are busy, but tonight they're packed to the rafters. It's fast approaching last train time. Tamaki and the Shinjuku team are preparing for a ferocious opponent. Other railways face leaves on the line or the wrong kind of snow. Here, it's cherry blossom. Each spring, the famous flowering trees are an excuse for Tokyo's biggest outdoor drinking binge.
And especially during this kind of season, when you have cherry blossom viewing and things like that, a lot of people tend to get drunk.
Now the swarms of drinkers have to get home, and they're converging on Shinjuku. 12:50 a.m. In the control room, the team is ready for their toughest time of day. It's last train time, a moment that makes every staff member sweat. They all know booze and trains don't mix.
The last train's tough for us. It's when we've got to be most careful.
On platform 16, it's not long before the first passenger emergency. Tomoki and Miho are called to the control room for orders.
Many drunk people use the station to get home. We see them fall over. We have to call ambulances for them and help the paramedics to get them to hospital.
The night shift team are no strangers to intoxicated casualties. But with space and time both under pressure as last train time approaches, Tomoki and Miho must deal with the situation fast. The paramedics collect their passenger, one of many who'll keep them busy tonight. With the patient in safe hands, Miho and Tomoki can refocus on their most important task, getting everyone on the last train.
ご利用のお客様にご案内いたします。この後の埼京線下り列車は2番線から川越行きの最終電車の発車となります。
There's considerable tension among the station operators and the platform operators around the last train. They're worried. You sometimes watch a salaryman who's had a few to drink, and he'll come in and he'll sort of weave next to the edge of the platform, and you can see the station attendants kind of rushing forward to stop him. Train drivers that I talk to, they're terrified of drunks falling onto the track. There's a lot of chaos on the platforms, and there's a lot of activity, and the trains can actually be fairly raucous.
It's more crowded than the morning rush. People are desperate to get on the last train and try to squash into the crammed carriages.
It's as busy as the morning rush hour, but this time the travellers are drunk, and missing the train means not getting home at all.
Everybody's tired. There are people throwing up on the platforms. It can be a very unpleasant scene. A lot of very red-faced people just barely making it home on the last train.
The control room scan the platforms for trouble. (1:01 a.m.) For the team, it's over. The last train's lights disappear into the darkness.
I feel incredibly relieved when the last train leaves. That's when we finally get to go to sleep.
But there's now no way Tomoki can get home. At least there's a bed with his name on it, just a stone's throw from the tracks. In just 4 hours' time, the first service of the day will pull in. The crowds will be back. Thousands of trains will again deliver millions to the most crowded city on Earth. And the world's busiest station and her team will once again be put to the test.